So, you know the stock character in like YA, contemporary, and fiction specifically? She's kind of nerdy, she probably has brown hair and glasses, and she thinks that like all the other girls in her class that are wearing makeup are buying into the patriarchal society and are beneath her in a way, although she would never say so explicitly. That was me for a real long time because yay, internalized misogyny! Yeah. Hey everybody, my name is Maya. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you are returning, today we are going to be talking about vanity in fiction, which I think is just absolutely fascinating. The first instance of vanity in fiction that I could find comes from the Greek myth Narcissus and Echo and Narcissus, one of the two. In the myth, Echo falls in love with a man named Narcissus, but Narcissus is incredibly narcissistic, and that's not good. That's very bad. So he receives a punishment for his narcissism, which is essentially just more narcissism and the inability to make connections with anybody else on the planet. He just constantly looks into mirrors and into bodies of water to gaze at his marvelous reflection. Echo, who fell in love with Narcissus, is also punished. And I never really understood why, but I've come to the conclusion that it's actually because she is vain as well. She's incredibly impressionable, and she's so concerned with what Narcissus and others think about her that she refuses to express original ideas or thoughts. Because of that, she is forced for the rest of her life to just regurgitate other people's ideas, which sucks because that would be real hard to communicate. Like, if there were a fire, and she was like trying to tell you that there was a fire, like, not good, very bad. Although arguably both characters in Echo and Narcissus are vain, what's interesting to me is that the character that's most predominantly and pronouncedly vain is Narcissus, who is male. Why is this interesting to me, you may ask? Well, because vain now, just as the adjective, is applied primarily to not only females in real life, but also to females and women in fiction. Why? That is the question. The term vain or vanity can be traced back to the 13th century and comes from the Latin root word vanus, which meant like idle and futile. In terms of like the furniture vanity, that can be traced to Madame de Pompadour, who was the mistress of a French aristocrat or king or important guy. She made the furniture incredibly popular and the place to put on your face.
Renette Poisson? No, wait, Renette Poisson! Later Madame Etoile, later still Mistress of Louis XV, uncrowned Queen of France. Actress, artist, musician, dancer, courtesan, fantastic gardener. Who the hell are you? I'm the doctor, and I just snogged Madame de Pompadour.
If you, like me, are a Whovian, you know.
Always take a banana to a party, Rose. Bananas are good.
In many religions, vanity is considered to be an extension of the sin pride. Vanity was often symbolized religiously as a peacock or as the whore of Babylon. Interestingly, both of these symbols were either explicitly feminine or alluded to femininity. In philosophy, vanity is considered a broader form of egotism and is often described as just the fear of appearing original, which I thought was actually really interesting because it goes back to our dear friend Echo, who was so afraid of saying the wrong thing that she just said what everyone else was saying and was then punished for it. Moving into the Renaissance, vanity was often expressed as a naked woman in art. Often she would be holding a mirror, or a devil figure would be holding a mirror behind her, and you were both invited to enjoy her beauty and her vanity, but at the same time, you were kind of meant to judge her because, like, she's just lounging about being lazy and pretty. Like, that's stupid, right? In fact, the famous painting of the girl with the pearl earring is considered to be the most express example of vanity in art because it's literally just a young girl looking at herself in a glass, admiring her beauty, and that's it, apparently. I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty painting, but apparently the connotations run long and deep. Ultimately, vanity in art warns the viewer against the ephemeral nature of beauty and really emphasizes the idea that it will disappear, that it is temporary and we all will die, and when we die, we will not be pretty, probably. That is our brief history of vanity. Now I want to talk about how I feel it applies specifically specifically to women and how that translates to our fiction and our interpretation of vanity in the modern sense. It's pretty commonly known, whether you're religious or not, that Christianity is a very patriarchal religion. Women are often treated as property within religious texts such as the Bible and are really given a secondary place to men in terms of the stories that are told and the lessons that are taught. Women are also often used as examples of what not to do. An example of this, of course, would be Eve in that one garden with that one apple. She messed everything up. I don't know how, but apparently she did. Vanity, of course, also in history was shown in the form of a woman. And what's really fascinating to me is that the naked woman was the pure form of vanity. But then you have to consider fashion, which is also considered vain. So you're vain no matter what. If you're naked, you're vain. If you are adorned lavishly, you are also vain. An instance of this I find especially interesting would be the corset, which now is often considered a symbol for female oppression historically. However, something I didn't actually know until I researched for this video is that corsets were often designed by women for women and made by women specifically tailored to individual women. It was actually Victorian men that promoted the idea that corsets were really horrible for women, not only in terms of their physical health, but also it degraded their appearance. They used beauty and vanity to be reductive towards women.
Women's fashion has always been ridiculed, like pamphlets, satires throughout history often focused on new fashion trends, new hairstyles, new styles, and women following those fashion trends were always seen as vain and even indecent sometimes. Why was that? Well, in a world where a woman's only way of expressing herself was through the clothes and through the fashion, that field was obviously looked down upon. It clashed with the growing popularity of women's rights movement. So the opposers of the movement took every opportunity to bring women down. And it's also no coincidence that in the 19th century, fashion was one of the only industries not only relying on, but also run by women.
This misconception kind of lives on today. The most prominent example I can think of is Emma Watson's refusal to wear a corset within Beauty and the Beast live action, which was a historical piece, which probably should have entailed a corset if they were being realistic and time period appropriate. I do respect Emma Watson's decision though, because there is such a heavy misconception about corsets, but I think it's also important to note that that was not accurate. It's not accurate necessarily that corsets were used to oppress women or that they were prioritizing beauty over health. They were by women, for women, and demonized often by Victorian men. With that out of the way, let's talk about specific characters in fiction who are described as vain. I want to point out before we begin the incredible, disproportionate nature of female characters to male characters. On my list that I've compiled here, there is only one male character who is widely defined as vain, and it's not in a degrading way. He is vain comedically. He is meant to be funny. It is meant to be a joke. I am, of course, talking about Dorian Gray from The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, who happens to be one of my favorite authors and playwrights. Dorian Gray is handsome, impressionable, wealthy, and is really concerned with his pleasure over all else. However, the audience isn't supposed to hate him or criticize him for this. He's supposed to be funny. Female characters that are vain, though, are not supposed to be funny. They're supposed to be critiqued, and people are supposed to not like them, and they ruin the story in some way. An example of this would be Lydia Bennet from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Lydia Bennet is spoiled. She is impertinent, she is feisty, she's pretty much everything that the time period didn't like in a woman. She was not palatable. In doing research for this video, I came across a couple of forums in order to find specific characters that people identified as vain, and one forum detailed Lydia Bennet as being only concerned with balls, militias, and gowns. Let me ask you one thing. What's wrong with being interested in balls, militias, and gowns? Is it hurting anyone else? I don't think so. Are those just her individual interests that society preys upon because they are maybe more conventionally feminine? I wonder. It's also irresponsible here to not remember that the time period Lydia was living in, the only way for a woman really to progress in society was to marry up into a wealthy family, and often you met a wealthy man who you could marry by wearing pretty gowns and going to balls with militia at them. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Amy March said in Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott.
I've always known I would marry Rich. Why should I be ashamed of that?
There's nothing to be ashamed of, as long as you love him.
Well, I believe we have some power over who we love. It isn't something that just happens to a person.
I think the poets might disagree.
Well, I'm not a poet. I'm just a woman. And as a woman, there's no way for me to make my own money. Not enough to earn a living or to support my family. And if I had my own money, which I don't, that money would belong to my husband the moment we got married. And if we had children, they would be his, not mine. They would be his property. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is. It may not be for you, but it most certainly is for me.
Speaking of Amy March, she is also potentially the most vain of the March sisters, and it's described as to being to her detriment. Amy and Jo are incredibly similar characters in a lot of ways, but one way in which they diverge appearance-wise, like on the surface level, is how they dress. This can be seen particularly in film adaptations. Jo is partial to very simple clothes. She's quite masculine in her dress style, and she is applauded for that. Amy, however, is much more into lavish gowns and dresses. She wears a corset. She wears hoop gowns. She has pretty silks and pretty details and buttons and lace and collars, etc. Oh my. And that's a bad thing? Because I'm pretty sure liking pretty dresses isn't a character trait. I don't know. A few other female characters who are considered vain in fiction are Maria Bertram from Mansfield Park, as well as Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. Maria Bertram is meant to be beautiful, accomplished, well-mannered, and attractive. So, I'm sorry. What makes her vain? The fact that she's beautiful? Because it says here that she's also accomplished and well-mannered. So she's polite and kind, and perhaps intelligent and competent in some way, but we have to focus on the fact that she's attractive. Likewise, Scarlett O'Hara is vain, self-centered, and spoiled and insecure, but she's also intelligent. I mean, yeah, you shouldn't be self-centered, but like, she's also intelligent. So when a woman is concerned with her look, she's vain, no matter her other character traits. That's really interesting. Because we are not only talking about books here, but just general broad fiction, it's also important to remember that female villains in animated movies are also incredibly conventionally vain. And vain there is described as enjoying conventionally feminine things. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? You are! So the queen enjoys looking at herself and enjoys being beautiful and decides to kill her stepdaughter, or her daughter. Maybe it's her daughter. I don't know. Because she's more beautiful than her. I know this is fiction, right? That's why this video is called Vanity in Fiction. But does enjoying the way you look really ever lead to wanting to actually kill someone who's prettier than you? I just don't know. Another example of female vanity being like a really bad thing and we should hate her for it, versus male vanity being used for comedic senses, is Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. He's incredibly vain, no one really likes him, but it's hilarious, right? They play that whole joke with LeFou, like when Gaston's talking to the mirror, he's like, I'm not finished with you yet. And LeFou comes over and he's like, yeah, me neither. Like, that's played for laughs. That's not used to make the character unlikable in a sense that would promote hatred. It's just meant to be like, oh, that silly guy, he's so obsessed with what he looks like, as opposed to, wow, she's a real. Who else do we have that fits the bill for vanity? Mother Gothel wants to be beautiful, and so she's evil. She goes about it evilly. She kidnaps a child. Lady Tremaine wants her daughters to be more beautiful than Cinderella, and so she's bitter and emotionally abuses her stepdaughter. Last but not least, we of course have the classic mean girl.
My name is Karen. My hair is shiny. My teeth are perfect. My skirt is tiny. It barely covers my perky hiney. My name is Karen. I may not be smart. That's it.
Mean girls are usually the girls who like makeup, right? Right? They're the ones concerned with what they look like, with their figure, with how much they weigh. etc. Mean Girls really cater to the male gaze, right? And that's part of what makes them such horrible characters, because they just don't understand what it means to be a strong, true, intelligent, independent woman. Regina George. And I think that's mildly problematic. We live in a society in which beauty is a currency and it benefits no one except for the system. By the system, I do, of course, darling, mean the patriarchy. We're just seemingly convinced that girls cannot like makeup, like doing their hair, like social media, and also be intelligent and passionate about their individual pursuits. Again, I mentioned this in the intro, and it's something that I feel really horrible about, but for the longest time, I was that stock character. I was the nerdy girl who looked down on other girls for enjoying makeup and fashion, because I thought they were just playing into the male gaze and structure. But I was incredibly misguided here in not realizing that women dress for themselves. As someone who now loves fashion, I dress for myself. I dress the way I do because it's comfortable and it's fun and it's spirited and it reflects my personality in some way. Specifically during a pandemic, fashion has become even more important to me because you can't see my face anymore. So best wear my personality on my sleeve if I can't on my smile. You can love makeup, you can love hair, and also be a fully formed human being. And I think society forgets that a lot, and so it attacks young girls and women who enjoy traditionally feminine things. Why are we attacking women for being supposedly vain in a society that demands that they be vain? Pretty privilege is a real thing. It is. There's no way to deny that pretty privilege is not a real thing. People often succeed or fail in Hollywood, often in part based on how they look. Why are we attacking women for trying to have as much as an advantage as they possibly can in the world, whether that be in their personal lives or in their professional lives? Why are we attacking older actresses for getting plastic surgery in an industry that demands they always look young and not be allowed to age, or else their career is over? And why is it women who attack women for this? I totally think that there are men out there who attack women for liking traditionally feminine things. That's obvious. But why is there such a magnitude in the phenomenon of women attacking other women for liking what they like? And the answer is, I don't have an answer, and that's okay. I think that questions are incredibly important and more important than answers. The more we question the world around us, the more we question the way that world is shaped by art, in this case fiction, the way that fiction is shaped by the world, the more skeptical we are, the closer we will be to uncovering some sort of, if not answer, some sort of response. We can uplift each other, I do know that. We can do our best to support other women in their individual interests and understand that people are multifaceted and complex. At the end of the day, vanity in fiction is something that's been going on for a long time and something I don't see stopping in the near future. I think it's incredibly damaging because it is specifically applied to women and people who do not conform to a gender in a hateful way. But when it's presented in a man, it's funny. It's a pretty complex issue, and one that I don't know how to tie up the loose ends to, thus I'm having a really difficult time figuring out how to end this video. I think I'll end it by saying that you can like what you like, and you shouldn't be judged for it. And I do hope that in the future, society and art will reflect that individual capacity to enjoy what you enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I know it was mildly discombobulated, but I hope you learned something, found it entertaining in some way. I will see you all again next time, and until then, stay well, and yeah, bye.